Weezer. We've been joined by Councilmember Blumenfield and Councilmember Harris Dawson. I would like to call this meeting to order and start off with multiple item speaker cards. And the first one I cannot make out, so I'll go to Spindler. I'm sorry, sir, did you also sign up under that other name as well?
I signed up on the kiosk, sir.
Yeah, did you also sign up under Herman 666 and the...
No, sir, I signed up as Herman, sir.
There is no Herman on our queue.
Yes, there is. You just told us I signed up as Herman 666 like I always do, sir.
You signed up as Herman 666 with expletives and
no, I signed up under 666 Herman, sir.
Okay, there is no Herman 666.
No, I signed up as Herman 666.
There is none of that. So, sir, are you Spindler? I called Spindler.
What do you mean, am I Spindler? Do I look like a white nigger?
I called, sir, can you ask this person to leave, please?
No,
he
you're
comes
not
in here every meeting, disrupting the meeting. Sir, I gave you a warning. You are not Spindler. I called up Spindler. And you do this every single time. And we're going to ask you to leave. Sir, you are not allowed to come to these committee meetings any longer. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. For those of you who are attending these meetings for the first time, this individual comes to all our council meetings, as many committee meetings as they can, and he disrupts these meetings. It's unfortunate because at many times there are children in the audience, but he uses bad language. And I think it's about time that our city attorney give us the correct legal advice and have these individuals express their freedom of speech. But when they come in here at every single meeting and disrupt the public, and they shouldn't be allowed to come here again. So to our city clerk, that individual is no longer allowed to come to Planning and Land Use Management Committee meetings. I don't care what the city attorney's office says, because I think they're giving us the wrong advice. People like him should not be allowed to come here and disrupt every single meeting. And when there are children in the audience, say the types of things they say. So at least from this, for Planning and Land Use Management Committees, he's no longer allowed in here. Thank you very much. So we also have under multiple item comment cards, Jim Reese and Patty Berman. Both of you probably signed up for 13 and 14 and 15, correct? 14 and 15. Yes. Did you wish to speak in? Okay, well, we're going to take them together later on, so you don't need to sign up at this point in the meeting. That's fine. So we will continue. Item number 5, there are no public comment cards, so we will approve that item on consent. Item number 6, no public there is one public comment card. We'll hold that item. Item number 7, no public comment cards. We will approve that item on consent. Item number 8, there are no public comment cards. Oh, yes, there is one. We'll hold that item. Item number 11, no public comment cards. We'll approve that item on consent. And item 13, we will continue to July 31st.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Item number 8, if it's the applicant or the owner, they had advised me that if it was consent, they would not speak.
Okay, who is the speaker on 8? Mitzi Mogul, do you waive your right to speak? Okay, we will take that off the consent, take that off the regular agenda and approve item number 8 without objection. And we will continue to item number 6 and call that item to order, please.
Item 6, Councilman, this is a report from the Cultural Heritage Commission to include the Sap State House as a historic cultural monument in CD 13.
Okay. We probably don't need a staff presentation. We'll call the public comment. Michael O'Brien.
Yes, thank you, Council Member. The Sabsai House is worthy of designation as an historic cultural monument because it is the work of two notable mid-century modern architects, J.R. Davidson and R.M. Schindler. Davidson designed the original house, and Schindler designed 2 additions to the house. The house is significant as being a small work by Davidson, which shows his care with even the smallest commissions. Schindler's work is significant as showing how he took the work of a previous architect and with small interventions made it his own. I was privileged to live in the house for 20 years when the daughter of the original owners was looking for a rental tenant. When I moved out, I carefully passed the house on to a person who would also maintain the original fabric of the house and who would also know what a privilege it is to live in the house. Please support this nomination.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your testimony. And item number 6, we will move approval without objection, so ordered. And item number 10, we could take up now as well, I've been told. And the speaker on that is Laura Myers. Do you waive your right to speak? Okay. Item number 10 will move to approve. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. And now for the regular agenda, item number 1, report from the Director of Planning, Mr. Vince Bertoni.
Yes, thank you, Chair Weezar and members of the committee. Just real briefly, the last December 13th, the City Council adopted the Affordable Housing Linkage Fee, which went into effect February 17th of this year. And as you'll remember, that fee was phased in over 3 phases. The first phase went into effect today. So everything. So that's when the fee went into effect. It's being implemented in thirds. So we have the first third, which is this week. The second third will be in December of this year, and the full fee will be implemented in June of next year. So as you can imagine, we've seen a little bit of an increase at our development services centers in terms of applications coming in leading up to this last 3 or 4 weeks as applicants have come in to try to submit their application before the fee goes into effect. But just wanted to let the council know that it is coming into effect.
Okay, great.
That's it. That was my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bertoni. Any questions? No. Thank you. We will note and file item number 1 without objection, so ordered. Item number 2, if you could read that into the record, Mr. Mejia.
Councilman, item 2 is a motion of Farrell Harris Dawson. It's instructing city planning and city attorney to report back on the implementation process of AB 52 regarding Native Americans and CEQA.
Thank you very much. Staff here on this item?
Arthi Varma, City Planning Department. This motion is directing the Department of City Planning to evaluate the compliance with AB 52 and prepare a report back. Planning Department is in the process of preparing a technical bulletin and preparing a report to release back to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee.
Okay, are there any questions on this? Seeing none, we'll approve this item and move forward without objection. So ordered. Thank you. For the record, Mr. Price has now joined us. Item number 4.
Item 4, Councilman, this is a report from the communication from the mayor relative to the reappointment of Ms. Liz Mendez to the Central APC.
Welcome, Ms. Mendez here. Welcome, and thank you for your service on this commission. And we just wanted to ask if this is a reappointment, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and anything you'd want to share with the committee at this time?
No, it's been really fun. I look forward to another term.
And what have you found to be the most interesting in serving in the commission so far?
The behind-the-scenes look at how planning works in LA.
Okay, easier or more difficult than you thought?
I spent some time in the planning world, and it's interesting to see how it all takes place. But it's been fun to serve, and I look forward to continuing to do so.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move to approve the reappointment of Ms. Mendez to the Central Area Planning Commission for the term ending June 30th, 2023. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 3.
Item 3, Councilman, is a motion Weezer Martinez is instructing city staff to report back on options to compel the California Department of Toxic Substance and Control to perform necessary cleanups with a sense of urgency, as well as asking Building and Safety to report back and to request the Director of DTSC to appear before the Plum Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. And first want to start off by stating that, as many of us know, that the issue of Exide has been long with us, and it has impacted many families and communities in the east and southeast parts of our city and other cities surrounding the area. The community called for the closure of Exide for decades, but the state seemed to put profits ahead of Exide for many, many decades, and DTSC has now had some funding for some time to move forward and do some cleanups. There was an LA Times article that came out recently that showed or explained that the cleanups that we would like to see has been taking longer than we would like to see. And we all know the detrimental effects that this type of contamination can cause on the communities, particularly amongst children, that as they're developing, it can affect brain function and other systems. It's of deep concern to our community and a fight that we have had for many years. So we at the city thought it would be appropriate to ask the lead of the Department of Toxic and Substance Control, the state agency responsible for the cleanup, to come explain to the public, come explain to the city as to where we are in the process and if there's anything the city can do to assist, and if we in fact will see some light at the end of the tunnel. So with that, I first wanted to call up to the table a Department of Building and Safety. Or is anybody here from the Department of Building and Safety?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
before you begin, I just want to make an announcement that there is translation equipment available if anybody needs it. You can go to that side of the ropes and a translator will help you.
Great, thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. And my first question is, what have we as a city, or what has the department done to prepare for the Exide cleanups?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, council members. Pascal Chalita from the Department of Building and Safety. We have been working with the Bureau of Sanitation and Council Office on basically streamlining the procedure to submit for permits for cleanups, grading permits essentially. As you may know, grading requires a grading permit if it is in excess of 50 yards or in excess of a foot of excavation or backfill. So we have designated a plan check engineer just to review these plans on an expedited manner. We also have a backup in case that person is not available. We have received or issued 4 permits thus far.
So you've issued 4 permits?
Yes.
And is the department required to get permits from the department before they do cleanups?
Yes, any excavation more than 2 feet or backfill more than 1 foot or a grading more than 50 yards is required by code to have a permit.
Okay.
And as part of the permit also, inspections are required in the field to verify compaction.
And how long does it take the city to process any applications for permits?
Well, for a normal process, it takes 5 to 6 weeks, but for this particular purpose, we have designated a plan check engineer specifically for that project, and as soon as the customer is ready with all the paperwork and the plans, we issue it the same day.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else you would like to add on this?
Well, we've also, as a parallel process, and as you may know, identified the zone within the 1.7 miles, identified the properties for BMPs and what to do for other grading works for construction. Let me see. I think that's all we have. We're here to answer any question the committee might have.
Okay, great. Thank you. We'll move on unless anybody else has any. Mr. Price?
Just one question. Thanks for the report. This has been rather traumatic for the folks involved, the neighbors involved in the community. Has there been any ongoing public information campaign, just alerting citizens to what the status is, what's going on, what the time frame for some relief, relief will be?
Good question, Council Member. From the Department of Building and Safety standpoint, we are a regulatory agency for issuance of a permit. We have not been involved in any outreach programs or from our understanding, it's the Bureau of Sanitation that's been coordinating with the Department of Toxic Substance on the cleanup process.
Well, Mr. Chairman, appropriate, I'd like to find out.
Okay.
The answer to that question.
Yes, well, I think we could get that. Somebody just came up, but it's also an appropriate question when we call up the DTSC. But now we could also hear from our planning department.
Good afternoon, Shauna Bonston from City Planning. I just wanted to add in, we've been working with Building and Safety to add what we call a ZI, a zoning information sheet, to the 4,045 parcels that are impacted within the city of Los Angeles. So that's currently up, and any of those parcels, if you go under ZEMIS, can access information that is an advisory to the property owner for safety precautions.
Do you have a copy of that sheet? Do you have a copy of that sheet?
I can get you one.
I have a copy.
That includes information related to anybody applying for a demolition permit, correct? Such that should they want to demolish any properties there, there's the danger of the lead contamination being let out into the air through the demolition, correct?
Correct.
That alerts people to that as well. Okay. Is there anything else the city can be doing on our part? Well, we have found, have we been coordinating with DTSC in their cleanups?
I believe in terms of the cleanup, the coordination has been through the mayor's office, council office, and the Bureau of Sanitation. On our end, we've connected with your council office and the Bureau of Sanitation in case or whenever we have, permits to be applied for, to basically respond to it in a timely manner.
Okay. Is the housing department here? No. I understand the housing department has a lead paint abatement program, and so that may be a possibility if we could coordinate with any attempts to clean up as well, if they're already going on their own properties to clean up. So we should probably discuss in further time about any possible coordination we could do in that matter. They are here. The housing department here. Can you come up, please? Well, let me get the housing department up first. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lisette Romero Martinez, and I manage the lead hazard remediation program for the city of Los Angeles.
Great. Have we done any type of coordination with DTSC and the cleanup with our lead paint abatement program?
Yes, and no. We have been, since 2016, I've been involved in conference calls with them. And last year in October, I helped them organize, but it was, I'm working directly with his name is Alex Andres Martinez, but I don't know his title, to be honest with you. And he works with DTSC, and he's in charge of that area over there and doing the outreach. So I've been contacting him, but we haven't had a signed agreement, so we haven't been able to coordinate.
So the actual cleanup, we don't have a signed agreement to find deficiencies. Since there's a cleanup going up in a parcel of land, and we are already doing some lead paint removal, why not do it together? We don't have anything like that.
Not yet.
Okay, and it's possible?
Yes.
Have we attempted?
Yes, but we haven't have a signed agreement, and so that was the only issue. But now with the map that is in there, we can actually coordinate. So that was one of the things that I have asked.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And now I'd like to invite up the Director of the Department of Toxic and Substances Control, Ms. Lee. And first and foremost, thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to come to this committee. As you know and have heard, the community is distraught, upset, frustrated about the pace of these cleanups. I often hear that would we have the same type of response if this was not a low-income community? We see some possible disparities here. And when I read the LA Times article, I thought to myself, well, this DTSC has the money and it's so urgent, there's a real health hazard. Why aren't we moving faster? And that's why we thought it important to continue moving the ball forward, to have the people responsible for these cleanups to come explain to the public about where we are with this and if there's anything else we can do to improve the pace of which we are going. So welcome and thank you for being here, and I understand you have a presentation and then we'll go into questions after that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and also members of the committee. My name is Barbara Lee, and I'm the Director of the Department of Toxic Substances Control. I appreciate your interest in DTSC's comprehensive work to close the Exide facility to ensure the contamination from that facility's operations is fully cleaned up, and also to restore and revitalize the communities around the former facility. The Exide cleanup, as you, I think, know, is one of the largest in the nation. It is the largest that California has ever undertaken, a cleanup of this kind. Because it is such a large cleanup effort, DTSC has consulted with US EPA on similar cleanups that they have undertaken in various parts of the country, some of which have actually taken 20 years or more. We want to make sure that we're using the best strategies that we can use to ensure that our cleanup goes as quickly as it can and is as effective as it can be. Our goal is to protect the health of the communities living around the Exide facility and to ensure that the public has an opportunity to be engaged in this historic cleanup effort. We also continue to collaborate with our local partners, including the City of Los Angeles, and we hold extensive outreach and engagement opportunities for the public to participate in what we're doing. We opened an office in the City of Commerce in order to ensure that our staff are easily available to community members who have questions about the cleanup activities that are underway, and also to make sure we can be out in the field on a daily basis, keeping tabs on what's going on. We've held dozens of public meetings, over 100 question and answer sessions for community members to come and meet with our staff and have their questions answered about their property and the cleanup that is underway. We also developed a Workforce for Environmental Restoration in Communities program. We call it the WORK program, and we've done this in partnership with the Los Angeles Trade Tech College. The goal of the program is to offer job training to community members so that they can achieve paid employment in the restoration of their neighborhoods. We negotiated directly a project labor agreement for this cleanup program. This is the first project labor agreement any state department or agency has directly negotiated. And the goal of this project labor agreement is to ensure an exceptionally high level of local hire. So the project labor agreement, in coordination with our work program, is providing a pathway for community residents to advance to high-paid union jobs in their communities. I should also note that while we're doing all of this work on the cleanup, DTSC is coordinating with the Attorney General's office to ensure that the Exide facility, the Exide company, completes a full characterization of its contamination and ensures that all of that contamination is cleaned up. We're also working to identify other responsible parties who may have contributed to the contamination in these communities, because under federal and state law, all companies that contribute to contamination are required to participate in the cleanup of that contamination. In closing, I would like to say that DTSC definitely appreciates the partnership with the City of Los Angeles. We look forward to working collaboratively with you and your departments on a number of initiatives that we believe will ensure the best cleanup for these communities, as well as a revitalization of the community fabric. I would like to introduce my Deputy Director, Mr. Mohsen Nazemi. Mr. Nazemi is in charge of our cleanup program, and the cleanup around the former Exide facility is one of the areas of his responsibility. And he has a presentation for you now that will present to you some of the particulars of the cleanup. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be here, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Mohsen Nazemi. I'm Deputy Director for the Site Mitigation and Restoration Program with DTSC. I'll have a quick presentation to give you an overview and update on the Exide cleanup. Just as a background, DTSC issued a corrective action order to Exide in 2014 to require them to investigate and do any cleanup necessary associated with the contamination that they may have caused both on-site and off-site. And in 2015, DTSC notified Exide that they are not going to be receiving their permit, and their permit will be denied. And as a result, the Exide facility closure and final EIR was approved with extensive public engagement in 2016. And as Barbara Lee mentioned, we engaged in development of an extensive cleanup plan and a final EIR for the cleanup with public participation, and approved that plan in less than 1 year in 2017. As far as outreach that one of the council members asked about, DTSC has contacted residents of over 10,000 parcels to obtain access agreements for both sampling and as we go forward and have done in the past for the cleanups. And we've sampled over 8,500 parcels and continue to do more as others provide us access for sampling. As of last week, we have overseen cleanup of 335 parcels, and we are currently implementing our cleanup plan and continuing cleanups under a contract with our contractor, NEC. So with that, let me go over what the cleanup consists of. As you heard, the cleanup is for an area, what we call preliminary investigation area, which is approximately 1.7 mile radius surrounding the former Exide facility. This area includes 6 cities, including City of Los Angeles, but also cities of Bell, Commerce, Huntington Park, Maywood, and Vernon, and also includes the East Los Angeles unincorporated county area within the PIA, or preliminary investigation area. Our program looked at the sampling results of over 20,000 samples and determined that the extent of contamination from Exide was as far as the 1.7 mile radius, and that's how we define this area, which includes 16 parks and publicly used open spaces, 24 public schools, 5 private schools, and roughly 10,000 parcels. As part of our cleanup plan, we looked at the initial data from the 2014 order that Exide received from DTSC. We determined that the extent of contamination goes beyond the adjacent areas that Exide did the cleanup and sampling. And with the $7 million appropriation of emergency funding, we sampled over 1,500 parcels and cleaned up 50 parcels and began work on the cleanup plan that was done in the 2015-16 timeframe. And with the appropriation of the $176.6 million, DTSC embarked on sampling properties in the preliminary investigation area and cleanup of properties with the highest lead concentration in soil and greatest exposure risk to the sensitive population. We began that work in early 2016, and we continued work on preparing the cleanup plan and the draft EIR, which again, with extensive engagement from the public, was approved in less than 1 year in 2017. In the meantime, as we were doing all this, we continued our cleanup of properties with the highest level of lead under our time-critical removal action authority, and started the implementation of the plan and continuing to our cleanup, as I mentioned earlier, under our contract that we're going forward with. This is an example of the number of properties that have been sampled under DTSC oversight. There are over 8,500 parcels with unique parcel numbers, and of those, 1,526 are within the city of Los Angeles. As a part of our cleanup plan, we used a prioritization scheme, and approximately 2,500 parcels in the preliminary investigation area have been prioritized. And of those, 620 resides within the city of Los Angeles. So far, as I mentioned, we have continued cleanup, and we've cleaned up 335 parcels, and we are continuing to do that. And of those, 70 were within the boundary of city of Los Angeles. As far as outreach, we have created 7 outreach zones and focused on reaching the residents within those outreach, and 2 of those outreach zones that are identified here in orange and dark green are within the city of Los Angeles. They are outreach zones A and B. We're also doing this with significant safeguard to protect the health of the community members and workers as we move forward. Part of the ongoing activities that DTSC is conducting to ensure that impacts of the cleanup are minimized are the use of low-emission trucks and equipment. We're conducting air monitoring, dust suppression, and other measures to reduce any fugitive dust. We're also using some traffic control measures, visible flags on trucks that are carrying contaminated soil, and use specific truck routes in order to minimize drive through the residential neighborhoods. We're also using other safeguards to protect health and community members and the workers. I think another element of the Exide cleanup is the actual facility itself. As you know, Exide operated in city of Vernon since the early 1920s. and there has been some legacy contamination at this site. But just as a measure of enforcement, DTSC have required Exide to provide financial assurance for both closure and corrective action. They required to submit closure plan for both phase 1 and 2 of the on-site closure of the facility. They are required to characterize to a full extent both contamination on-site and off-site of the facility, and to develop corrective measures to address those contamination levels and implement those upon approval of the remedy selected by DTSC. As far as the facility closure itself, we notified Exide in our intent to deny their permit in February 2015 and amended the stipulated order in March of 2015 and required them to submit their closure plan, which they did in May of 2015 for phase 1. Phase 1 is removal of all buildings and equipment above ground. The approval of the phase 1 closure plan and the final EIR was done through extensive community engagement, and it was completed in December of 2016, and Exide was required to submit a closure implementation plan 30 days after our approval, and we approved the closure implementation plan in October, and the actual closure demolition began in November of 2017. The closure plan elements include removal of all the regulated units. These are hazardous waste units that Exide operated, removal of contaminated buildings and some of the ancillary equipment, and to conduct further soil sampling in order to develop what phase 2 cleanup should look like in terms of soil and foundation and groundwater. All of this work will be coordinated and characterized on the ongoing corrective action as well. This is a site layout of Exide, and the 3 green rectangles are the enclosure footprint that Exide has, and will be demolishing that as part of the closure plan. To date, pre-construction activities have been completed. They've mobilized and set up equipment. They've de-energized, rerouted electrical lines. They have done both dry and wet decontamination of the buildings and off-site shipment of some of the equipment that they removed from the facility. And the important aspect of it is because they're removing and demolishing the building, DTSC required Exide to put in a full enclosure, temporary enclosure around the buildings, and it's referred to as a hacky system. And I'll show you in the next slide what that looks like, but I also want to point out that if anybody is interested to look at what the closure steps and elements are, this website on our homepage will actually walk you through a video demonstration of what that looks like. This is the enclosure that we are requiring Exide to put around it. The scaffolding that is being built is going to be built around each one of those enclosure buildings, and it will be completely enclosed and vented to our pollution control equipment during the demolition activities for the site. Finally, what we are looking forward is to reiterate what Barbara mentioned about our commitment to cleaning up residential properties, schools, parks, daycare centers, and childcare facilities with the highest level of lead in soil and greatest risk of exposure within the preliminary investigation area of 1.7 mile. Our top priority is to protect the health and safety of people in this community, especially the youngest and most vulnerable. This cleanup is the largest of its kind undertaken in California. It demonstrates the administration's strong commitment to protecting the health of the people who live in these communities. And we will pursue Exide and other responsible parties to recover the cost of investigation and cleanup while the work of sampling cleanup of impacted properties continues. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Great. Mr. Price.
Thank you. A couple of slides, prior slides, I think it indicated that the request for closure was submitted in January and not approved till December? Or did I misread that?
The
Draft closure plan.
closure plan, which was a document that laid out in detail how Exide is supposed to close the plant, and the environmental impact report was approved by DTSC in December of 2016. The next side was required within 30 days to submit a closure implementation plan which ensures how they are going to comply with that closure plan. We wanted to make sure they understood what they're required to do and follow it to the letter. And that plan was submitted by Exide, and after significant comment and review by DTSC, was approved in October.
Is that kind of typical? Is that a typical kind of period of time to the plan was submitted January and was approved in October? Is that basically the timing pretty common in this situation?
That's a good question. It depends on the type of plan. Council member, as you know, Exide is one of the only 2 lead-acid battery recycling plants west of the Mississippi, and Exide was a major hazardous waste treatment site where they have lead-acid battery crushing, they have smelting, and they have refining operations. So the closure implementation plan was a very detailed document. The closure document itself, if I laid it out on this table, it'll be about 1 foot high, and we wanted to make sure that they, in their compliance plan, have incorporated every requirement that we put in our closure plan. So this is not a typical facility, so it did take that long to finalize it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And, well, thank you very much for that presentation, but I just want to be clear. So there are as many as 10,000 parcels with the area of concern surrounding Exide, correct? That's the target we're working with overall? And of these, there is evidence of contamination at least 7,500 parcels. Is that correct?
The DTSC's prioritization that we included in our cleanup plan has prioritized 2,500 properties. And those are at the level that federal US EPA requires cleanup. But you're correct that there are additional properties that are above the state of California screening level of 80 parts per million for lead.
Okay, and so through your sampling, there are other parcels on top of the 2,500 that have at least or meet the California standard for that's required to clean up, not the federal standard.
That's correct.
That's correct. And would we say those are about 7,000, 5,500, 7,500 or so?
I think that's a rough number, 7,000 or more.
Okay. And so we have both a federal standard and a state standard. The federal standard we think we would do with the 2,500. Of these, of the 2,500, we've cleaned up 335 parcels, correct?
That's correct.
And we have entered into an interim contract to clean 215 more parcels. We have an interim contract, not a permanent contract, but we have an interim contract to clean up 215 more, right? So what I want to understand then is, in terms of the funding that we have available, will the $176 million get us to the 2,500, or how many do we plan to the 2,500? But we don't have funding for the 7,500.
Well, the Exide facility is obligated under federal law and state law to characterize the full extent of the contamination that the operation of that facility created, not only on-site, but also off-site in the residential area around it, but also in the industrial area around it. And then the facility is required to propose a strategy to clean up that contamination. So we are holding Exide accountable to ensure that they comply with those requirements. And the work that we are doing now with state money, We will recover from the Exide facility the cost of that work, but we're doing it now so that the community members who were living at the properties with the highest levels of lead and the greatest potential exposure didn't have to wait any longer for cleanup.
Okay. But we don't have, okay, and so we don't have funding for the 7,500. And in terms of timing, how long do we think it will take to complete the 2,500? Since we did about 335 so far of those.
We estimate about 2 years.
2 years, okay. But the rate that we've taken so far to do 335 has taken us 2 years.
Because of the time needed to develop the cleanup plan and to complete the environmental impact report on the cleanup plan.
Okay, so you anticipate then that we would go a lot more faster now because we did some of that preliminary work.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. And finally, some of our community members have suggested that instead of doing parcel by parcel, we go different places, that we do block by block. Is that more appropriate to do or not?
As Mr. Nazemi mentioned, the funding that the department received, the $176.6 million, came with the directive that we use it to clean up the properties with the highest levels of lead and the greatest potential exposure to sensitive populations. In order to do that, we have had to identify those properties that have the highest levels of lead and the greatest potential exposure, and that's how we determined the 2,500 that will be cleaned up in this phase of cleanup. And I just want to touch on a remark you made earlier, Mr. Chairman, about funding availability for the remainder of the cleanup. The remainder of the cleanup is the obligation of the Exide company and also of any other companies that have contributed to the contamination in the preliminary investigation area. That is under federal and state law how this cleanup will be completed.
I see. Okay, so we anticipate then, as far as the state is concerned, that they have committed to clean up the 2,500, but the remainder 7,500 or so is under the obligation of Exide. That's
correct.
Okay, and we've read through several public reports that they have no intention of doing that. So it would leave us in either litigation to a bankrupt company or put it on our responsibility again to do some cleanup. And so we're nowhere.
I respectfully disagree with you on that. We are working very collaboratively with the Attorney General's office to hold Exide accountable.
Okay, and we don't know where that litigation will go, but we want to hold Exide accountable for those additional 7,500. Okay, great. And Parkways, I know there's been some discussion about Parkways, that they weren't included in the original cleanup of parcels. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Again, the department was directed to clean up the properties with the highest levels of lead and the greatest exposure to sensitive individuals. And the greatest exposure occurs where young children play for extended periods of time in the dirt. And generally speaking, that is not what happens in the parkway strips. Very young children don't spend hours a day in the parkway strips. They spend it in their yards, and that's why those areas were prioritized for cleanup. The parkways are part of the larger area that Exide is responsible for characterizing and cleaning up under federal and state law, and we expect that that's when the parkways will be addressed.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments before we go to public comment? Okay. Well, thank you very much. We'll take some public comment at this time, and thank you again for coming, and we may have some follow-up questions after the public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you. Now we will turn to public comment. Each public speaker has 1 minute. We'll start off with Brian Johnson, and then Jason Gallegos, and Teresa Marquez. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Go right ahead. Yes.
My name is Brian Johnston. I'm a physician. I practice at White Memorial and have practiced there for over 40 years. I have been looking at this problem and I have a real concern. My concern is that the area of contamination extends far beyond 1.7 miles. When you look at the Environ study, which was done in 2010, looking at aerial dispersion of lead and arsenic into the air over Los Angeles, the cloud extended from Palos Verdes Peninsula to Altadena. I've looked at that on the map. It looks like about 44 miles to me. The path was 10 miles across. Now, we all know the wind changes. That was just 1 month out of the 92 years that the Exide plant was operating. So I have a belief that it is a reasonable presumption that there may be
Go ahead, you could finish.
There may be far more widespread. And so I call upon the city, I call upon DTSC, and I call upon all the authorities to begin looking more broadly. 20, 30 miles. You've got to get out to the end of it before you begin to clean up.
Great, thank you. And Doctor, can I ask you a question? You're at White Memorial, which is perhaps one of the larger hospitals near Exide. Have you seen a lot of cases of lead contamination, or are patients concerned about it?
It is impossible with the information we have to determine if it was lead or arsenic or where it came from. What we have to do is geocode, which is to say specifically locate where the pollution is so that we can then help the people who live in those areas. And it could be widely distributed, it could be unevenly distributed, but we won't be able to determine whether a disease process was caused by lead or arsenic from that plant without knowing exactly where it is located and what the isotope types are.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, and thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Marquez, Jason Gallegos.
My name is Teresa Marquez, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for all your questions that you have to DTSC. It clarified and also supported what we have, the information we have. But basically, we're down to our children in Boyle Heights and in this area are living in a toxic area every day. And the parkways in our area, we use them. I used them when I was little. Weezer used them when he was little because I saw him running over the parkways all the time on his bike. And if he fell on the parkway because there was grass. Now, this controversy as to why the parkway should not be clean or clean, it needs to stop. It needs to be clean. The other thing is that we have money coming in on the battery fee, $25 million maybe a year, and we could utilize that. But we need to move on making sure these houses are clean now, not tomorrow, and stop with the contractors and losing contracts. And maybe we should get more than one contract to clean up. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Jason Gallegos, Veronica Polanco, Daisy Chavez.
Hi. Before I begin, our neighborhood council submitted a community impact statement. I'm wondering how much time we have for this.
Sure. You have up to 5 minutes. If
I would be able to split it with our council president and our transportation and environment committee chair.
Yes, it's submitted by the council. You could share it as whoever you wish. Thank you.
First off, thank you for this meeting here. Our neighborhood council last month did approve a community impact statement on this, and even though some of our members were unable to vote for this item, you do have our full support. One of the issues that I've heard here is that in terms of the outreach, that there has been a lot of community outreach. However, in the 4 years I have been on the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council Planning and Land Use Committee, I don't recall any time at which the DTSC or the Board of Public Safety has come to our neighborhood council to reach out to us. The information that we get is from your offices as well as from the LA Times or other publications. there are questions that we would like to ask that would be better fitted in one of our committees as opposed to one of the outreach meetings that they have where there are so many people that we're unable to ask more than one question. And with that, I would like to turn it over to our president.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Good afternoon, council members. Thank you so much, Councilmember Weezer, for bringing this issue to the forefront. My name is Daisy Chavez, and I am the president of the Boyle Heights Neighborhood Council. We, as the Neighborhood Council, applaud the efforts to bring attention of the inadequate response by the Department of Toxic Substance Control to clean up the 1.7 radius identified, but we all know that this is way too small of a response. Currently, out of the 10,000 homes, as we have heard, 335 homes have been cleaned up. That is 0.03% of the 10,000. Keeping in mind that only the yards have been cleaned, not parkways, not attics. The plan to right a wrong that has devastated our community from the beginning has been flawed. We need more, and we need it now. We know of a local resident within the 1.7 radius, Aurora Bañuelos, a great-grandmother to 5 children and the primary caregiver during the summer, to Daniela, age 5, Haley, age 8, Aiden, age 10, Jeremy, age 12, and Zachary, who is also age 5. Ms. Bañuelos' yard has not been cleaned because she is not considered one of the priorities for this area, even though she lives within the 1.7. This means that during the summer and any time thereof, her grandchildren have to stay inside of her house. We all know that the house itself is probably contaminated because nothing has been cleaned. The grandchildren are going to have to stay inside as though they were prisoners. So I ask you, how long should she wait till she becomes a priority? How long should her grandchildren wait till they become a priority? We also know that on the 3300 block of Opal Street, this is just one block, 10 out of 19 families have had at least one family member die of cancer or are currently battling cancer. This is just one block. Where is the outcry from the city? How have we held accountable those responsible? The Department of Toxic Substance Control has fallen short time and again. This wouldn't occur in affluent communities. This would not be happening in Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, or South Pasadena. The only reason the profitable contamination of an entire community has occurred is because we are seen as disposable. We are dying due to this massive negligence, and we ask you that you right this wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Veronica Polanco.
Yes.
Ivan Martinez Watson. Ernesto Pantoja.
Okay. In communities like Boyle Heights, already facing health disparities and access to proper health care, the additional burden of the excess contamination is unacceptable. This is a public health crisis. The lack of urgency, the lack of timely cleanups, the lack of comprehensive cleanups is unacceptable and needs to be remedied. How much more are Boyle Heights and other impacted communities reasonably expected to endure? We have a human right and civil right to clean air, clean water, and clean land, and we hope that we all come together and really understand the urgency of this, because time is of the essence. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I would like to request an additional minute to speak on behalf of the 46,000 members of the Sierra Club Angeles chapter.
Sure, we could be lenient on your time. We're being lenient with most speakers. Right. Thank you.
I'm speaking here today as the chair of the Environmental Justice Committee for the Angeles chapter. We have at least 400 members living within the city of Los Angeles and some of the nearby communities, and that's just here alone. The Angeles chapter covers all of LA and Orange County. I had been attending the community meetings to hear about what was going on with Exide, and I have to tell you, some of the numbers I heard today are a lot different than what is being presented in some of the smaller community meetings. In fact, some of the information we were given today was contradicting information I heard last night from the representative DTSC at the Resurrection Community Church. Residents are very concerned. They're very anxious about this cleanup process. They're very worried about it. And you need to know that things are not being told to the community like they're being told to you. We were told last night that because of the antimony in the lead, that's how the DTSC was going to be able to identify which properties they could hold responsible directly to Exide. So when they're talking right now about looking at other responsible parties, that's not what we were told last night. We were told that they were reasonably certain they could prove certain properties were directly contaminated by Exide. Thank you.
Thank you. Ernesto Pantoja, Jose Gonzalez, Terry Cano, Mark Lopez.
Good afternoon, Chairman, committee members. My name is Ernesto Pantoja. I'm here on behalf of Sergio Rascon, Business Manager of Labor's Local 300, and our over 300 members that live within the contaminated Exide area. We're here to say that the work has begun. We have members out there working on this. We have members that live there that are affected by it. We've been bringing in community members into our union, putting them to work. And the time for pointing fingers and blaming and saying not enough, and it's got to move on. We need to start cleaning these houses, and we need to start putting people to work. You have over 40 people right now sitting out of work that were promised work and jobs. And the longer we fight over where this money's going to come from and when it's going to be released, that needs to stop. The work has begun, and we need to continue on that. And it's as our business manager says, this is what the laborers do. We do lead abatement. We do all the work nobody else wants to do. And he says it. If you want to get this community 100% clean, the only way to do that is unthinkable. You got to tear down every single house, start from the ground up, and rebuild that entire community. So I want you to think about that when we're sitting here bickering over how to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Jose Gonzalez, Terry Cano, Mark Lopez.
Good afternoon. We need more city involvement, first of all. Thank you very much. What I'm going to ask for, and I know it's not products out of my what I'm supposed to do, but as a victim of, and for some of the other victims of this disaster, I'm asking for the resignation of Director Barbara Lee and any of her supervisory subordinates. And if Jerry Brown cannot secure that, then he should resign too. This is a tragedy. The agency has a history of failures. Exide has a history of contaminating city after county, after state, after country, and leaving. Exide knew this. Exide was issued multiple violations. They were allowed to operate for 33 and a half years with a temporary permit. Temporary permit, 33 and a half years. That's insane. Agency has pretty much blocked us from getting any kind of health care taken care of for us. We have people out there that are losing their homes because they're too sick from the delaying of this project to work and pay their house notes. No matter what they say, if you don't clean up the two most contaminated areas of a home, the attics and the parkways, you haven't cleaned up anything, especially the attics. When those 5-ton trucks, whether they're electric or whatever, come rumbling down your street, all that stuff is coming down out of the attics onto your carpet where your kids are crawling. This is ridiculous. It's a failed plan. The dirt sampling was a failed plan. The cleanup plan is a failed plan. Long-term exposure is just as dangerous as sucking up the arsenic, cyanide, hexavalent 6, chromium 6, all the other contaminants that they won't give you an answer to as to why and how dangerous they are combined. There's no minutes to any of the meetings. They're not being honest. They are not being transparent. And I know it sounds like I'm very angry, and I deserve to be angry, but I'm not. I'm just more frustrated with the fact that we're not being listened to. And as we're talking to right now, there are women and children out there in summer vacation. Some of us can't afford an air conditioner and stay inside. Some of us have to go outside. And the parkways are always used in our communities. They're just out of touch. They're in way over their head. They have to hire somebody else who's going to be able to do that. If they're not going to clean this up right the first time, they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars re-cleaning it up. This is like the fox guarding the hen house. Here's an agency that was partly responsible for the contamination in the first place, and they're in charge of cleaning it up. This is ridiculous. How do you put somebody like that in charge of cleaning it up? Then they're using it as the goose that laid the golden egg, because they're taking all these hundreds of millions that are coming in from every corner, and they're having who knows what they're doing with it, because they're not cleaning up any homes. 300 homes. They knew that this contamination existed a long time ago. The plant was actually closed in what? I think it was 2013, because I wasn't diagnosed with terminal cancer at that time. I was healthy back then, and it's been closed since then. But they're going to try to give you these 17s and 18s and stuff like that to try to make it look like they're actually doing their job. They're not doing their job.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. Terry Cano, Mark Lopez.
Hi, I'm Terry Cano. I'd just like to note that I am representing Resurrection Neighborhood Watch. And before I begin, I'd also like to, if you guys can take under consideration, I'm recovering from pneumonia for the second time in a year, so I have to speak slowly. First, I'd like to say is, as someone who was born and raised in Boyle Heights, I am extremely frustrated, and my heart is broken, because every time I hear Exide or listen to DTSC, I have the memory of holding my parents, both of them, my family, my friends, as they took their last breath because of the contamination from Exide. People have lost their lives, and they sit here and they talk about how they are concerned with the public, but their whole viewpoint on this, and they're treating it like it's some unsightly vandalism that they have to figure out how to clean. It's a public health catastrophe. While they're sitting there making their plans on how to collect samples, I'm sitting with my family and my brother who has terminal cancer on who's going to take care of my child when we're dead. And they don't care. Actions speak louder than words. And their actions say that they are willing to take years to clean up 2,000 homes when there's 10,000 out there that need to be cleaned up. I am not going to live to see the rest of this get cleaned up. Our city parks are contaminated. Our children are sliding and playing in the city parks, and we asked them years ago to clean this up, and they refuse to even acknowledge that these parks, our city parks, where our kids are playing, are contaminated, and they're allowing it. They could have cleaned these up immediately. How many more people do I have to bury before they finally figure out that the people's lives are more important than soil samples? How many of you would think that it's acceptable to wait years living on a property that's going to kill you and your children? And they're perfectly fine with not acknowledging that this has taken life from people, and they are okay with taking years to clean this up, and no guarantee outside of the 25,000 homes, the 2,500 homes that they're going to clean up. There's no guarantee that they're going to clean up the rest. I am begging you, force them to clean this up first. Make public health a priority. Not their plans and not covering their butt because they allowed this to happen. I'm begging you to help, because we won't last forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Lopez.
If it's not obvious by now, I think just to reiterate that DTSC is beyond redemption at this point. I don't know anybody who trusts DTSC with handling this cleanup. I know people within DTSC that don't trust DTSC with handling this cleanup. They come to a new body and they tell the same old lies. The lie about 1.7 miles, and that's where the contamination is at. We've heard it time and time again, and we just heard it again told to you all here. Even though they haven't tested where the lead ends. They can't tell us, here is the rim, right? Even though state data shows us that there's elevated level of lead in children's blood up to 4.5 miles from Exide compared to the rest of the county, right? DTSC has fought us every step of the way. Before some of these folks here were even there, were fighting us to not clean up any homes, not test or clean up any homes, to testing 40 homes and then agreeing to only clean up 2, to finally agreeing to clean up the 40 homes, to then expanding that to 209, to then expanding that to 10,000 residential properties. We've had to push them every step of the way. And the county has played a partnership role in that. They haven't been perfect either, but they have played a role. We haven't seen the city play that same role. A lot of us feel that this should be taken away from DTSC. Again, even folks within DTSC feel that DTSC shouldn't handle this, right? There should be a local cleanup agency that can be a partnership with the city of LA. Y'all have a more robust staff than they do. The county should be involved in this cleanup, and the other jurisdictions involved in this scandal that continues to be a scandal should be involved in this cleanup. And so I hope that we can follow up with the staff of those of you all here, especially you, Councilmember Huizar, and look at where in the city's robust staffing and departments we could potentially take care of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes our public comment. And if I could ask Barbara Lee to please come to the staff to come to the table. I could have some follow-up questions. And as they come up, I want to acknowledge the deep mistrust that there is for DTSC amongst the community. And it was noted that a lot of what has happened stems back 30 years when DTSC continued to provide temporary permits for Exide to continue. I mean, temporary permit is just that, it's temporary. On top of that, the efforts that the community went through to close down Exide was incredible. I mean, we felt like we were fighting both the DTSC and Exide at the same time. And so when we got news that we finally had some funding to clean up, I would assume most of us were elated, but at the same time, the distrust continued. And so when we see that this is taking longer than expected, it is not at the pace that we would like to see a health crisis, a catastrophe happen. And so on top of that, when one of the reasons we asked for this hearing to happen here at the city, despite the fact that the the DTSC is not a city agency, and we appreciate you being here, is that we as a city have a responsibility as well to ensure that the health and public safety of our constituents are there. But I didn't even feel it or felt confident that it was there in this cleanup process because I kept hearing different numbers as well. We would get reports of different numbers, how many properties are being cleaned up, what's the plan, what's the end goal in mind. And so that's why we wanted to have this hearing, to get some numbers clearly on the table and see what is ahead. Now, I'm leaving this meeting at some level thankful that DTSC is here, but at the same time concerned about the additional properties that should be cleaned up, 7,500, where we don't have no funding, don't know what will happen. And the accountability, the responsiveness to the community, as you heard today, needs to be improved from DTSC. I do have some follow-up questions, and that is, our Building and Safety Department mentioned that they've only been asked for 4 permits, but you are not, are you or are you not required to request permits when you do the cleanups?
We do request permits as we do the cleanups. As we mentioned earlier, we've identified the properties that have the highest levels of lead and the greatest potential risk to the residents living there. And as we identify those properties and secure agreement from the property owner that the construction can occur, then we have the address where the cleanup will happen, and that's when we reach out to the jurisdiction in charge to get the appropriate permits, whether it's within the city of LA or one of the other jurisdictions.
But I'm trying to reconcile the fact that they say, the Building and Safety Department says only 4 permits have been requested, yet we have 335 parcels that have been cleaned up. So how do we reconcile that difference?
I believe we've cleaned up 70 residential properties within the city of LA boundaries. I would presume
Within
that
City
we
of LA.
did, that we did get the permits as we did each of those properties. It's possible that your building and safety director, when he spoke, was referring to the permits that have been issued under the streamlined program that they have developed and recently launched to expedite the permits for the cleanup going forward.
Okay. And the interim contract, when will that become permanent? So at least we know these 2,500 are finished.
So we have a contract with NEC to clean up 215 properties. We can award additional properties if we need to. The goal is to ensure that they are cleaning up at a rate of 10 to 25 properties a week as we move to secure one or more additional contracts to complete the rest of the 2,500 properties.
Yeah. And one of the public comments was if we could have multiple contractors so that we could, the money's there. Can we do this quicker if we have multiple contractors?
We are looking at a range of options to ensure the cleanup moves forward quickly. There are a limited number of contractors who are qualified to do this work. In addition, some of the logistics around securing the access agreements and working with the project labor agreement and dispatching the workers through that agreement limits the number of contracts that can run in parallel, but we are looking at having one or more additional contracts.
Thank you. And finally, are you coordinating with the county? You know, the county is a local agency that works in health and human services. Have you been coordinating on these cleanups with the county?
We have a weekly call with all of the local jurisdictions to update them on the progress. I think it's weekly, isn't it?
It is.
To update them on our progress on the implementation of the cleanup plan. We have additional efforts to coordinate with local jurisdictions as we find properties where there is lead-based paint contamination. We refer those to the local jurisdictions, and I absolutely appreciate your offer to develop some better coordination around those cleanups that the city is undertaking and we are undertaking. I think that would be a very positive step. We also have been talking with our local partners and also the State Department of Public Health on providing information and other wraparound resources to the community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any further questions from committee members? No? Okay. Yes, Mr. No? Thank you. Again, thank you for coming to this hearing. We really appreciate it. I want to thank the public as well for being here. The purpose of this hearing, like I said, was to bring full attention in an open air about some of the questions the community had about the pace by which this cleanup is happening. We would hope it would happen a lot quicker, and certainly that mistrust needs to be rebuilt over time with the community. But it is a catastrophe, it is a crisis, and I would hope that through airing out more of this information, being transparent as much as possible, that we get more of this information available to people to put the urgency behind this matter. So thank you again. I'd like to continue this item so that we could hopefully also have further discussions, perhaps in closed session with our city attorney as to what are the legal options for the city with Exide, since the additional properties, we don't know if Exide will or will not pay for those. It was mentioned that the Attorney General is looking at that, but certainly I would like to pursue the city looking at what our legal options are, and we'll continue this item to further discuss that item in closed session at some point. Great, thank you. We'll continue this item without any objection. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Next item, Mr. Mejia.
The next item, Councilman, we could take up item 9, the Cultural Heritage Commission, or do you want to jump to any other item pending?
Let's, actually, if we could go back to item 2, and
Okay.
reconsider that, we need to make an amendment to instruct the Department of City Planning to report back within 30 days on the costs and time needed to initiate and complete a citywide historic context statement for Native American tribes in Los Angeles to augment the ethnic cultural section of Survey LA.
Very good.
Objection to that? Seeing no objection, so ordered. And on item 10, I was told we could, have we taken item 10 up?
Yes, Councilman.
We took that up already, correct?
Yes.
Our next item, we could take up items 14 and 15, please.
Yes, item 14, Councilman, is a City Planning Commission report, resolution, general plan amendment. It's for a vesting zone change, and there's also an appeal filed by the project applicant. And item 15 is the proposed development agreement between the city and City Market.
Okay, great. Welcome. We'll have a brief presentation by staff, and then we will discuss this item. Welcome.
Hi. Good morning. My name is Christina Toiley with the Department of City Planning. The City Market project before you today was approved for the construction of a mixed-use development consisting of 945 residential dwelling units, 210 hotel rooms, 294,641 square feet of commercial office spaces, 2,024 862 square feet of retail uses, and a 312,112 square feet of corporate educational campus. The project is anticipated to be built over a 20-year period. At its meeting of November 9, 2017, the City Planning Commission took the following actions relative to case numbers CPC 2013-4050 and CPC 2013-4051. CPC approved the project, recommending a general plan amendment, a vesting zone change, and a height district change, a conditional use to allow major development project, a master conditional use for alcoholic beverages, a site plan review, and a development agreement for a term of 20 years. The CPC dismissed without prejudice a conditional use to allow floor area averaging in a unified development, and also disapproved a supplemental use district to establish a sign district for the site. On March 21, 2018, the applicant filed an appeal on CPC's denial of the supplemental use district to establish a sign district for the site. The applicant contends to the following. The sign district is consistent with the general plan. The administrative record contains evidence in support of these findings. The CPC failed to support its determination that the required findings could not be made, and that the CPC denial findings are based in part on an asserted inconsistency with the draft signage ordinance rather than the LAMC. The appeal complete letter is located in the council file. Please note that the EIR was certified with the previously approved track map, and the following action on the environmental should be as follows. On March 2nd, 2018, the City of Los Angeles found, based on their independent judgment and after consideration of the whole of the administrative record, the project was assessed in the City Market Los Angeles EIR number EMV 2012-3003 EIR, State Clearinghouse number 2013-021046, certified on March 2nd, 2018, and pursuant to CEQA guidelines section 15162 and 15164, no subsequent EIR, negative declaration, or addendum is required for approval of the project. Thank you, and staff will be available to answer any questions that you may have.
Great. Thank you very much. We will go to public comment now, and then come back to any questions. Public comment we have.
Excuse me, sir. This is where I have my speaker cards.
Oh, yes, sir. You are the appellant, right? And applicant.
Yes. Jim
Okay.
Reese.
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. For the record, Jim Reese with Craig Lawson Company, here representing the applicant in their endeavor to redevelop this site. Is highlighted by the applicant. We're looking to gain approval for a mixed-use, what we refer to as a catalytic mixed-use project on this site, to reestablish the site as the economic engine that it was in the city of Los Angeles for approximately 100 years until the last decade, when it has gotten a little less active than it was before. We've submitted a letter to you regarding the approvals that were granted by the Planning Commission and asked you for some consideration regarding 4 design guideline issues related to trash loading, building heights, gray water, and the solar. We've also asked for consideration on the affordability levels due to make them consistent with the level of development in this area, as well as our appeal. I am here, and our team is here and prepared to talk to you about any of these issues in more detail, but I'll wait for you to ask questions on those, and at this point, we stand ready to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you very much. Shane Phillips, Patty Berman, Ariana Gomez, Natalie Schumann.
Good afternoon, council members. I'm Shane Phillips with the Central City Association. We're here today to support City Market and ask the committee to support the project as well as the requests being made today. City Market is going to bring a mix of uses to the Fashion District, helping sustain activity throughout the day and bridging the gap between eastern and western parts of downtown. It will also include significant community benefits, including units set aside for workforce and moderate income households. Downtown's community plans are currently being updated, as you know, Councilmember Huizar, and City Market's proposal fits with the vision that downtowners have created for their community. Our city center is the perfect place for LA to be bringing new residents, jobs, and tourists, so we hope that you'll approve this project with its requests today. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Hi. My name's Ariana. I'm Ariana Gomez. I'm here on behalf of the LA Fashion District Business Improvement District. This project is in our area, and we are here to support it. The proposed project would breathe new life into the former produce market, which has been vacant for years, and we believe that it'll bring much-needed amenities for our shoppers, our buyers, current businesses, and properties. The Fashion District has to compete with other cities that also offer wholesale or business-to-business in the fashion industry, such as Las Vegas and New York, and it lacks amenities like hotels and world-class dining that our buyers have in other places. So this project would help keep a competitive edge for us. It will also bring much-needed housing to the downtown community, and we hope that you support it as well.
Great, thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Natalie Schumann, and I'm speaking today on behalf of over 30,000 hospitality and restaurant workers represented by Unite Here Local 11 throughout Southern California and Arizona. We are proud today to speak in support of the proposed City Market project. This district is in need of good jobs, and we're happy to see this project move forward with a commitment to treat workers with the dignity and respect that they deserve. So we thank the council for their leadership and the development team for their partnership, and we would urge you to approve the project today and its additional requests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And anything else to add from the planning department? No. I'd like to thank the proponents of this project. As we all know, downtown is undergoing a tremendous state of evolution, and this area in particular is anticipated in our next community plan to see more positive development in the area. This group that was put together actually consists of a group of generations old stakeholders who have pooled their resources together to make this happen. And they took the risk early on when they first made this application, anticipating what was to come in the future. So I want to thank them for seeing the possibilities with this area and what's to come. I'm also excited about the prospect of providing nearly 100 new affordable housing units to working class households. In addition, the district will receive between some funds in new public benefit payments that will be applied towards re-envisioning Pershing Square, as well as to address other street beautification, transportation, and affordable housing needs. So I think all in all, this is a good project to move forward with, and colleagues, I ask for your support on this item. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Okay, Okay, we will move, I actually have to read, or should read, I was told, the actual motion. So here it goes. I move to grant the appeal with the following amendments and instructions. One, in regards to the urban design guidelines, permit commercial loading and garbage pickup from the public street for Block 1. Reduce the minimum building height in Height Zone D to 150 feet. Clarify gray water system requirements to be satisfied to the extent feasible as determined by DWP. Clarify passive energy requirements such that a 20-year renewable energy certificate would serve to satisfy the goal in the event that on-site systems are inadequate or infeasible. Number 2, in regards to the sign district, reinstate the sign district as was recommended by the department in its staff report dated November 9th, 2017. Require a net billboard reduction at a ratio of 2-to-1 with an in lieu fee of $30 a square foot, and instruct the city attorney to advise as to the location of such requirements language in the approvals. In satisfying the reduction goals, credits for physical takedowns are to be limited to existing billboards or supergraphic signs located within the Central City North, Boyle Heights, and Northeast Los Angeles community plan areas. Instruct the city attorney to prepare the draft ordinance as to form and legality. Number 3, in regards to the development agreement, 10% of required affordable include workforce level units in the first half and moderate level in the second half of the residential units being proposed. $7.5 million be paid to the CD14 Public Benefit Trust Fund to be utilized for future street beautification, transportation improvements, or affordable housing purposes within the 14th District, of which $300,000 is to be paid within 90 days of entitlements approval. $1 million to be paid to the Department of Rec and Parks toward the implementation of the Pershing Square Park improvements, including any related soft costs, pre-development costs, or construction costs. 40% of the off-site sign revenues to be paid annually and as verified through gross receipts shall be paid to the CD14 Public Benefit Trust Fund to be utilized for the future street beautification, transportation improvements, or affordable housing purposes within the 14th District. Instruct the city attorney to prepare the final development agreement as to form and legality. That's the motion. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, on the appeal, are you granting in part, denying in part?
We are granting in part and denying in part.
Well, it looks to me like the appeal focused on having an SUD, a sign district, so you could simply grant it.
We could simply grant it. Okay, we're granting the appeal. Well, that would be the motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, item number 9.
Item 9, Councilman, this is a Cultural Heritage Commission recommendation relative to the inclusion of CBS Television City as a historic cultural monument.
Okay, do you have any public speakers on this? No, there are no public. Oh, go ahead. Go right ahead. We'll have a quick presentation on this item.
Thank you. Ken Bernstein with Department of City Planning. This is the 4-story studio building located at the corner of Beverly and Fairfax in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles. The CBS Television City met 4 of our historic cultural monument criteria for its cultural and social significance in its association with the history of the television industry and the economic development of Los Angeles, its association with a historic personage, with radio and television pioneer William S. Paley, for its architecture as an excellent example of international style television broadcasting studio, and its association with master architects William Pereira and Charles Luckman. The Cultural Heritage Commission did include additional findings that reflected discussions between the Los Angeles Conservancy and CBS to further reflect and define the character-defining features of the studio as part of the findings that are transmitted to Council.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, we will move to approve this item. Any objections? Seeing none, so ordered. Thank you. Item number 12.
Item 12, Councilman, this is a report from the South Valley APC It's a zone change for a 9-unit apartment building in CD4.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Mary Ann King, project planner with the South Valley Planning Division. Before you is a request for a zone change from QRD 1.5-1 to TQR3-1. The Q limits the height to 35 feet. The site is located within the Van Nuys Sherman Oaks Community Plan area, and it has a land use designation of medium residential with one corresponding zone, which is R3. The proposed project is a three-story, 35-foot high, 9-unit multifamily building with one level of subterranean parking. 17 parking spaces will be provided with vehicle access from the alley to the rear of the site. The South Valley Area Planning Commission hearing was held on March 8th, 2018. A number of neighbors raised concerns, brought up issues with respect to privacy, traffic, the height of the building, and the width of the alley. All items were addressed. There was the applicant agreed to do a 5-foot building step back on the 3rd level, which faces the single-family properties to the north, which the APC recommended. Let's see. And the South Valley Area Planning Commission recommends the City Council approve the project with a 5-foot setback and non-transparent windows on the 3rd level, facing north. And I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We have one public speaker, Emma Howard.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Emma Howard. I'm the Senior Planning Deputy for Council District 4, Councilmember Rue. I want to note that this project was approved in concept by the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council Planning and Land Use Committee and also by the whole Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council in January of this year. With the approval letter, the Neighborhood Council also requested the applicant revise their landscaping plans and redesign the 3rd floor with a 10-foot setback, which would be able to be used as a balcony or deck space, and recirculate the revised plans with the Neighborhood Council. As currently proposed, the Q conditions drafted in March of this year by the South Valley Area Planning Commission called for a 5-foot setback on the 3rd floor, and I note that the Q conditions also mention a landscape plan conforming to the original landscape plan submitted last year in 2017. I've spoken with the chair of the Sherman Oaks Planning Committee, and it is my understanding that the applicant did not recirculate the designs or return to the community. I have a copy of a January email chain from the Sherman Oaks Planning Committee to the case planner asking that the applicant return to Sherman Oaks in February of 2018. I also note that the last date for action is July 31st of this year, which gives us very little time at this point. I apologize for my personal delay, as I prefer to resolve project design requests prior to public hearing, and note as an explanation that I started as planning deputy in early April. Our office does not want to see this project denied on the basis of a balcony setback and a landscaping plan. But at the same time, the council member strongly supports transparent neighborhood project review, and the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council made a reasonable request in a timely manner, and were not given a direct response, nor was I contacted after starting my position. Therefore, I would request that the committee continue to next week this item and request that a revised landscaping plan conforming to the spirit of the request made by the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council be submitted electronically to our office and the Sherman Oaks Neighborhood Council, and as general public comment, prior to approval at plum and a vote by the council member at City Council. If you concur, we are not opposing the 5-foot setback on the 3rd floor in deference to the South Valley Area Planning Commission's consideration of the project and any potential constraints brought up at the public hearing in March. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will, yes, City Attorney.
Terry Kaufman, Messiah City Attorney's Office. 1 week seems really ambitious to work with the neighborhood council and the council district and have planning look at whatever. So you might want to do more than that.
Do we have a hearing after 2 weeks?
Yeah, there's a meeting. I think there's a special meeting on the 3rd, July 3rd. No? Okay.
What's your wish? You still want to do a week? You think you could do it in a week?
I don't see why they couldn't. They were given the information months ago, so I'm hopeful that we could just get
a revised landscaping plan that conforms to the spirit and, come back next week and say that it looks okay.
We'll schedule it for a week and one more week, and if more time is needed at that time, we'll continue it we'll figure it out at that day.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll continue this item for 1 week unless there are any
Yeah, excuse me, this is Michelle Levy, Senior Planner with the Valley Project Planning Division. I just wanted to mention that staff has not seen a revised landscape plan, and typically we go off of the plans approved by the Area or City Planning Commission as Exhibit A. And so we may need to modify conditions, we may need to reconsider the recommendation of the Area Planning Commission based on any revised plans.
Okay.
So we would need to review them for conformance with what the Planning Commission approved.
Okay. There might be some additional time necessary.
The last day to act is July 31st. I think there's a meeting on July 30th. Theoretically, you could have it in council the next day.
July 31st is a Tuesday?
Yes.
That's the first day they're back from
Recess.
Right. Are we scheduled? I don't think we have a scheduled meeting on the 30th, do we? Plum meeting?
No? Okay. Or the applicant can agree to an extension of time.
Yeah, we could do that. So for right now, let's schedule it for next week, and we have all these questions we have to answer by then, and we may have to continue it again, and we'll clarify whether we do an extension with the permission of the applicant and or we hear it on 31st or the 30th, or we'll figure that out. Okay? We'll continue to next week and answer all these questions, hopefully by then, and have a clear path.
Yeah, and just remember that time limit is for council to act, not for Plum to act.
Okay. And that's the 31st, right?
That's correct.
Okay. We'll continue this item for 1 week. With Thank you. With no objections, so ordered. Next item.
There are no further items, Councilman.
And there are no public comment cards because Mr. Herman's not here, so meeting adjourned.